Well, head coach Danny Stewart joins us. Danny, this room's a bit different to it was on the night that you won the playoffs. The great atmosphere, the emotion. Has it sunk in what you and the guys managed to achieve for this club?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still obviously special and fresh. I think like the video you guys put out the other day, it just brings back the memories, and my girls are watching it on repeat, every day too. So it's nice. But yeah, it was such a special moment. I think how the weekend developed and I guess was dramatized as well, just kind of added to the moment. And yeah, it was special.
Let's go into the weekend. How confident did you feel as a team and the form that you're in? You'd gone so close in that league title race, got to the semi-finals of the Challenge Cup. Did you feel you had a good shout at the playoffs when you went in?
Yeah, we really did, because I think the way we came back against Guildford and those two games against Guildford were arguably even better hockey than the finals weekend. And I know that's tough to say, but and I think us getting past Guildford, it really kind of set us up, and in the sense of playing the way we were and how to play to get over the hump. And, the last time we had played Sheffield was, I believe it was the retro night, was it not? And, we got that win. We got that kind of monkey off our back as well. And, I think myself, I think the rest of the coaching staff, I think the players, we all had that belief going in, yes.
And then that Sheffield game, obviously you didn't make the best of starts. You were 2-0 down, and Sheffield were clearly on top. How crucial, I guess, was that goal by Hugo War and then that second intermission for you to turn that game around?
And then that goal was massive, I think. And credit to Sheffield, they came out, and I don't think it was because we were poorly. They found another gear, and they had us on the ropes for sure. And Jason did a good job keeping that kind of close in the first period, especially. And yeah, but that goal just kind of spurred us on. You could see the energy it gave us and the confidence it gave us, and it was a big reason for why we won that game.
And then obviously a lot happened. I mean, again, the emotion, Foss scores late. Then you have to cope with the crazy equalizer, which I've not seen such a crazy goal since Robert Lakovic scored one in a playoff final, actually, that rebounded on top of the net, then hit the back, I think, of Stephen Murphy and went in. But obviously it was a crazy goal. Again, what did you have to say to the guys in that interval to obviously kind of get them to forget about that?
I think it was just, a big thing for us to the players this year was kind of that next shift mentality. Easier said than done, admittedly, but I think in that moment, and the way we had been playing, kind of coming into playoffs and getting through the Guildford, and that was a back and forth affair as well. I think I didn't have to say much, to be honest. We had a good leadership group, a good group in the room as well, and they knew that, okay, it was a unfortunate bounce, and we're now in overtime. Let's go get this one. And I think that's the mentality they had.
And you talk about leadership group, the one that was captain Sam Hare. No surprise was it that he stepped up, literally waved goodbye to the Sheffield Steelers on his way out. That just proved, I guess, what you knew about him that moment.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to do something special like win a trophy, your big players got to have big moments, and he stepped up at the right time, and it was good. It was good to see, obviously, for our benefit, the club's benefit, but for Sam especially, he's a tremendous leader, tremendous player, top human being, and for him to have that special moment in his last weekend of hockey was really, really special, not just for him and his family, but for the guys as well. He has that respect around the room.
We could unpick the Cardiff game for ages, or we'd probably be here till next week, but again, how, put into words, like, can you sum up that emotion as a whole in that game, how you managed to just keep calm? Because you and Linton have to lead these guys. How are you able to keep calm with everything that was going on?
I don't think I had the energy left to do anything other than stay calm. But yeah, I think a game we were well in control of, and I think similar to what we talked about, in the Sheffield game when Hugo scored that goal. I think that one goal at the end of the second that we gave up gave them some life, and they looked a different team in the third period, and kind of had us on the ropes then, and we managed to get into the break, and which was something I was concerned about after that tying goal went in. So, but credit to the guys, they regrouped and we came back out and started getting back to our game. And yeah, I mean the emotions of the two calls and goals called back was tough. I won't lie, and especially I think after the winning, well, the one that we scored that got chalked off was probably the tougher one because you'd had that high, and to bring yourself back and have to reset. Whereas I think when their goal got chalked off, it was almost like more relief and you could say, okay, here we go, we got another chance. So, and then, when Foss finally got that one that counted, it was, at the time, I was looking around and I got tackled by a couple of people, but it was more relief because, we had been in control of that game and it was looking so good and we kind of coughed that up, and then to feel like you won it, and then have to come back down to earth, and then you feel you lost it for a half second, and then have to pick yourself up again and go. But it was just relief. But once I had the chance to kind of settle down, it was unbelievable.
I just want to push you on the challenge for their goal. How soon? Because obviously Linton's got the iPad on the bench, and you two work together there. How quickly did you realise? Did you know in the moment? Did you guys look at the iPad and make a quick decision?
As soon as it went in, I remember kind of looking over to Linton and saying, "Hey, let's take a look at that," because I'm pretty sure that's the same thing. And Linton's pretty sharp with that stuff too. I remember in the Sheffield game, I don't know if a lot of people have spoken about this, but in the Sheffield game, it was actually Linton that came to me on Balmus' second goal and was like, "Stu, I think that was offside." And we looked at it on the bench.
You were working for a while. I remember.
We were looking for a while, and they were putting. We just the views that we had, we couldn't be 100% in the time frame that we had, and then we had to determine, okay, we've just gone down 2-0. If we're wrong on this, they get a power play. If they get a third one, that might be game over. So we kind of just ate it, and then after the game, we looked at it, and it was offside.
Wow. Yeah.
But fortunately, that one worked out for us. But yeah, I think just. At that point too, when their goal went in, there's nothing to lose at that point. You know what I mean? It's what's the worst going to happen? You can't get a penalty from it. Your season's over. So we thought that he entered because the reasoning that Dalton gave me on the goal that we scored that got chalked off was that Foss went inside the paint on his own accord. And through that, contact was made with the goalie. I know there was a little push kind of at the end there when the puck went in, but he kind of went in on his own accord. And we felt that was the same with Gurley because Matty was right on top of the paint, but he didn't push him into the crease. And we did feel that there was a little bit of contact there. So, I mean, it was a no-brainer to challenge that one.
And the emotion then of the victory, and then getting to go out on the ice with your teammates, your families, all the families come on the ice, and then just seeing that sea of black and gold. Can you put into words that emotion?
Yeah, it was special. Especially when I see my two little girls and my wife come on, and it was special because hate to say it, but the last 8 years as a head coach, standing up in those suites and watching other people celebrate. You watch it, and it had been so long since I've been able to be a part of that. I think it'd been 14 years since my last trophy, and it just so special. And then being able to watch other people too enjoy the moment too. That's one thing that I made sure that I even thought about it before the game and said, if we do win it, I want to take it all in and not just get through it and then be like, geez, that just went by so fast. So it was good to see other people enjoy it. Like we talked about Sam and his family, what a way to go out. And, the Brits that we've had here for quite a while that, Kel's Tets that haven't won a trophy yet. And, Logan as well. And, it was just special for everyone involved. And then to see the fans too, I think just the build up, what these guys and the staff went through at the start of the year, and trying to get over last season, and going through the memorial for AJ and the 1 year anniversary, and I think just for the club, the fan base, the staff, the players that came back from this year, couldn't write it any better.
Let's go back to the start of the season. You obviously we had a really good start in the Challenge Cup. Mm-hmm. How early on did you feel that you had a room? Because I guess on paper you signed a very good roster, you and Omar. But how early did you look around the room and see the characters and what you saw? Did you have a feeling that you could create something?
Admittedly, we were a bit unsure at the start because we had a really quiet group. I think we were sure that we weren't going to have any real bad eggs in the room, which is always a good thing. But we weren't sure if we had enough jam maybe in the room.
You mentioned that early on, I
yeah.
remember in interviews, yeah.
But the more these guys were together and got comfortable with each other, you started to see personalities come out. I think when we got out of that kind of tough stretch in the league and started winning some games, I think guys started coming to life a little bit. They started kind of understanding the roles a little bit more clear too. And you know, admittedly, guys accepted it, and that's a big reason for success as well, because I've been on teams as both a player and a coach where, you know, guys fought their roles all season long, and unfortunately that doesn't always lead to team success. So yeah, I think I'd say we probably about November time, maybe early December, we started thinking, man, this team could do something.
That league spell, it was, I think, 4-7, 4 wins, 7 defeats, and it wasn't the best of starts. Did you feel pressure then? How did you kind of cope? You know, knowing coming to this job, the fan base yearning success. How did you cope with that early season form?
I didn't feel pressure, if I'm being honest, at that point. We'd had the good start in the cup. And, you know, if we'd been losing those games by 3-4 goals every night and not even, you know, in the mix to win them, it might have been different. But I felt we were right there. We were a little bit snake bit offensively at the time, and we were in a lot of 1-goal games. A few of those games where we heavily outplayed teams and just couldn't find the back of the net. And, you know, I'd have to say I wasn't stressed. I just...
Almost like you knew it would come.
Maybe not no, but you know, I had a good feeling that we would get there. But you know, you don't always do when you got that feeling. So I think maybe experience too. Like I've been there, you know, and I know this is it was my first year at maybe a so-called big club, but you know, there's different pressures that maybe people don't consider. And, you know, even though the clubs I coached for in the past were seen as maybe smaller clubs, there was still pressure. There was, you know, the Coventry fan base is a fan base that had a lot of experience with winning trophies back, you know, especially in the early 2000s. And there's still a lot of that expectation there from them. And, but I think more than that, it is the pressure I put on myself to perform. And, you know, I was desperate to always win a trophy, no matter what club I was at, even, you know, at Fife as well, same thing. And, you know, again, another fan base that, you know, has pretty big expectations for a small club. So, you know, I was used to that. And I know Nottingham's a bigger scale, but maybe it was the experience. I don't know what it is, but I just, at that moment, I didn't feel the pressure. I think it was early. And, you know, there was still a lot of hockey left. And, you know, fortunately for us, you know, we found a way to turn it around.
And you mentioned in the answer there about a lot of 1-goal games when you had lost. And I think that's a good point, because we did show remarkable consistency throughout the season. Just thinking off the top of my head, at home, maybe Dundee at home early on was about the only team, a team came into this rink and ran away with it. And even away, you know, yes, you lost games, but to get blown out, normally in a season that'll happen quite a few times, perhaps. The boys showed remarkable consistency. That barely ever happened.
No, yeah, I can't remember. Was that our worst? I think
Dundee was probably our worst home defeat for sure. Yeah,
did we lose
5-2? Was it in the end?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And I think too, sometimes I think we as coaches, players, even fan bases, they get, you know, that big club, small club mentality again. But this league is just getting better every year. And the so-called smaller clubs are getting better every year. And there's no certainty, and there's no, you know, we're not entitled to win any game automatically anymore. Like, that's how good the league is, and you have to be at your best. And, you know, Dundee proved that they were, you know, a really good team. And I think I said it yesterday to a couple of people, like, to think that Manchester team didn't make the playoffs, like, it's probably the best non-playoff team that we've seen in this league. So it's, yeah, that was a tough night at the office. That's the one that comes to mind where I could say we laid an egg at home, but that is going to happen, unfortunately.
What about then the success of a whole? What's the pinpoint? What's the backbone? You know, behind every success story, there's the obvious. There's the people that score the game-winning goals and so on. But where do you see the reason that this dressing room won? I
think the buy-in to playing for the jersey and to one another. And that's something we try to stress, and I'm sure most coaches do, but it doesn't always happen that way, especially at this level. These guys play, they play maybe shorter careers than maybe the top levels, and they want to maximize that. And you can't blame them. These guys, a lot of them want their touches, they want their points, so that they can maximize their pro experience in terms of financially and experiences as well. And sometimes when you have guys that come in and expecting to play different roles, and then you get 2 months into the season and maybe those roles are adjusted. Some guys handle them well, some guys don't, and I truly believe that plays a lot of success or plays a big part in success. Sorry, but I'll give you a couple examples. Like Hugo Waugh and Otto Nieminen, season previous were top dogs on this team, and playing all situations. They were the top scorers on the team, and we brought in some firepower this year, and them included, and maybe the production wasn't quite there early on for their expectations, but those guys adapted to maybe, I don't want to say lesser roles. I think it devalues it, but different types of roles, and did a great job on the kill. Were responsible defensively. Their speed was still an asset for us, and they were such good professionals about it. They didn't sit there and whinge because they weren't the top guys anymore, or and so forth. So things like that. A guy like Matt Alfaro, he was a bit snake bit for a good stretch there in terms of goals for the season, but his 200-foot game, he just continued to do the things that he did and be a dominant player at 200 feet, and playing through an injury as well. And Diedrich Enbrandt, I mean, you know what, like that guy, the first half of the year was probably our best player. And I don't know if it's been public at all or whatever, but the last 2 months of the season, he played with a herniated disc in his back. I mean, the guy couldn't even sit down. He had, we had meetings. He had to stand up during the meetings. It's an injury that some people wouldn't get out of bed for. And he showed up every day, gave it his best, whatever he could do. There was certain weeks where he didn't even practice. And we'd go into the games, and he said, "I want to play," and he was good enough. Deeds losing a gear. He's still an effective player, but I think he deserves so much credit for that, because for him to come to the rink every day and a lot of times not even practice, but then show up and play the games and get through them. Credit to him. So, and I could go up and down the lineup, like our D-core. The commitment, the buy-in. When we got to a point where we had to make decisions in the lineup. There was a couple guys that got healthy scratched once, I think. Quinn once, Bunzy once, I believe Hugo once, and again, unbelievable professionals about it. They bought into it, and when they all got back into the lineup, they all played to the point where they're like, "I'm not giving my spot up again," and that's credit to all those guys as well. And our goaltending was phenomenal. And I just, there's so many things that have to go right for you to succeed and win a trophy. And fortunately for us, down the stretch, I want to say we stayed healthy-ish. Early season, we had, we lost Coop and, for 3 months. We lost Alfie for 6 weeks. We lost Doherty for 6 weeks. We had some key guys go out with injuries, and in those moments, Kells, Ollie, Logan, they all stepped up and played good hockey for us. And, Reed had a bigger role when those guys were out, and he did a great job. And I just want to make sure I'm going through everybody.
Well, you nearly mentioned everyone.
Yeah,
really,
and you know what? Big moments too. We talked about playoff moments, and big players showing up in big moments. And Contos, he had a lot of big moments for us. A lot of big goals, a lot of big shootout goals. A couple penalty shots in there, and he had some really big moments for this team, and he was a heck of a player for us. So all that said, those guys that fall under the radar, like Jaakko Niskala, even Matty Spencer at times, those guys just defended so well. Jean Boer was phenomenal. He came in, and the last thing I'll say is the 3 additions we made there with Garrett and Fossier and Grande. I mean, there's not a lot of times you're going to make 3 signings and 3 additions during the season, and they're going to be legit all-stars in the league like they were to the extent that they were. And I think those three were a big reason why we got over the hump as well.
I think what I take from that really good answer, Danny, is like guys kind of set examples, and it must bring everyone along. So if one guy's prepared to play through the pain, if one guy's prepared to not sulk when they're out the lineup, if one guy's prepared to play a minor role compared to last season, and I guess if other guys see that, it brings everyone together, which I guess must be crucial. And you mentioned like maybe you'll get a bad egg and that can affect the dressing room. It obviously didn't happen here, and everyone bought into that ethos that you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to Deeds, you just when you're bought into playing through something like that. And again, we always gave him the option too. There was never us like, hey, we need you to play. It was like, we'd like you to play, but if you don't feel you can give it. And there was a couple games where he couldn't. But it just shows that team success over individual success. He knew he wasn't going to go out there and score 3 goals a night. He knew he wasn't going to go out there and be a dominant player like he was in the first half. But he went out there anyway because he wanted to help the team. And I think it just sends a message throughout the room.
Just moving forward now, you're starting to piece the pieces together of next season, getting a key amount of players back. How crucial is that for this team's success? I think we're all aware that coaches have changed here, players have changed here. How crucial do you see about building that core for the future?
Very, very crucial. I mean, that's our top priority right now, is to retain a good chunk of our core. I think it's just a main thing because there will be some turnover. There always is. And, if we want to progress from this season, and to progress from this season, that means, probably winning a couple trophies. You know what I mean? And, the league. And, if we're going to do that, these guys that are coming back, they have to be the drivers. We can't get caught thinking like we're just going to pick up where we left off, because every year this league just gets better. And, you got to make sure that these guys are coming back and, they're driving the message when new guys come in, like, hey, we don't do things that way. This is the way we do it. And, that's very, very important. And the more of those you have, the more that they can kind of stick together. And, it has a way bigger effect on the new guys that come in. They come in, they're like, okay, this is the way we do things, and these are the expectations now, and hopefully you go on from there. So I think the biggest thing is we don't want to get caught thinking that we're just going to pick up where we left off. We got to put our heads down and work even harder to push this thing forward.
Just finally, I just kind of want to ask about the relationship with the fans. I mean, we joked in that first interview when we snuck you into the arena, and you joked and said this felt weird. You'd been a Blaze person before. We talked about that kind of pantomime dislike, Panthers and Blaze. There was always, big rivals down the, very short distance apart in the Midlands. I just wonder whether, when you walked into the club and now it's the end of the season, was it everything you expected it to be? Do you know what I mean? And that passion from the fans, if you're not at the club, you perhaps don't see it as much, but you lived and breathed it here for 9 months. And was it everything you expected to be, or was it even more?
I think even more. It was, that's my honest answer. I think it was awkward for me. And the amount of times, people came up to me even at the start of the season, were like, I sure didn't like you. And
you got caught out in one of your first interviews. Yeah. They have held their hands up now.
Well, media is another thing. But you know me, I say it all the time. It's not the external validation for me. I just, a lot of team events, I had people come up to me and were like, I hated you. Basically, I hated you, when you were a player and a coach, and, I'm trying to get my head wrapped around you being here. And I said, hey, I am too. You know what I mean? Because I did not like the Nottingham Panthers as a visitor. And, but, when I made the decision, I think all those decisions are just as anyone would. And once I'm in, I'm all in. And, it was, I think it just exceeded all my expectations, for us to, I think our message to the guys last summer in recruiting was like, we want to put the team back on the map and get back up to the top. And I think if we had done that with, even like a top 5 and maybe a cup final or a cup semi and showed progress, we probably would have been happy. satisfied, but as coaches, your competitive spirit, kicks in, and you always want to win something. And but for us to be one goal away in the semi against Belfast from tying that, and just missing out there, and then taking the league to the final weekend, and then getting over the hump and winning the playoffs. I mean, you couldn't have wrote it any better. And the fans were just phenomenal all season long, and I just think everyone just felt together. Everyone felt, from the players to the fans, the staff, the city, just everyone seemed connected. And, I think probably what happened last year, I think connected everyone, and everyone was kind of all in and just wanted to have a positive season. And I think when we started winning those league games after that bumpy start, I think just the fans got on board, and it helps when you play good hockey at home, right? Every time you're playing at home, you're giving the fans something to cheer about and be excited about, and enjoy coming to the rink to watch games. Like I said, you couldn't have wrote it any better. And fortunately for us, it was a good start in this new kind of era. And like I said, the important thing now is to build on it, and because I've been around long enough to know that that for a coaching staff or players can sure change in a hurry. So we'll put our heads down and work hard this summer to try and improve our team and our roster, and hit the ground running next season.
Brilliant. I mean, I'm excited already. Certainly put a lot of smiles on a lot of Panthers supporters' faces. Appreciate your time, Danny.
Yeah, thank you.